Welcome to Tech Brothers. In this video we're going to answer a question, and question is, why do we use SQL Server Browsing Services? Well, I'm going to answer this with a scenario that why SQL Server Browsing Services are important. First of all, that let's say that you have one server and multiple instances of SQL servers is installed on that particular server. Each instance is configured with its own port. We're not using SQL Server default port. So what SQL Server Browsing Services does, it keeps tracks of all the instances running on that particular server. Any calls that comes in using SQL Server name, if SQL Server Browsing Services is not there, then it's going to give you error, because it really doesn't know that it might know the name of the SQL Server, but it needs to know the port in order to give the connection successfully back to the application. So if the port is configured static, then it's going to give you error if SQL Server Browsing Services are not running. Especially in with SQL Server 2012 with availability group and 2014 availability group, SQL Server Browsing Services is very important. So any calls that comes from DNS, and DNS thinks that it's a SQL Server services, so I'm going to go ahead and try to call it on 1433, which is default, and only the default instance on that SQL Server named instance, which has default port, which is 1433, will be connected. Will be connected without SQL Server Browsing Services. So in order to distinguish different, this is just one scenario, different SQL Server instances on one particular server, SQL Server Browsing Services needs to run. We do need if multiple instances are installed with different static ports, we need to have some service that keeps a check on different instances and port. And also that it rarely happens, but it happens, believe me, if you need to recover SA password on SQL Server and you wanted to use that connection. If you don't have SQL Server Browsing Services running, you will not be able to use that connection, and you will not be able to recover SA password or any other administrative thing that you wanted to do using that connection. You won't be able to use that without SQL Server Browsing Services. So these are the reasons that we use SQL Server Browsing Services. There are other reasons as well, but if you wanted to know more detail, you can go on Microsoft site and read more about SQL Server Browsing Services. And I hope my answer helps.